It started with a single sentence that sent shockwaves through the fandom. During a recent interview promoting one of his upcoming projects, Sam Heughan was asked a simple question. What's something from Outlander that you've never shared before? What followed left the audience silent, the interviewer speechless, and the internet on fire. Sam leaned forward, smiled faintly, and said, "There's something the Outlander director once told me to hide, and I did. For years." At first, everyone thought he was joking. After all, Sam has always been protective of the Outlander legacy, respectful, discreet, loyal to the story that made him a household name. But as he continued, it became clear this wasn't another playful anecdote or charming behind-the-scenes story. This was something different, deeper, more personal. Fans immediately flooded social media with theories. What secret was he hiding? Was it about his chemistry with Caitriona Balfe? Something about a controversial scene? Or was it something more emotional? Something that revealed the man behind the character? Within hours, hashtags like #SamHeughanSecret and #OutlanderTruth began trending across Twitter and Instagram. Everyone wanted to know, what did the director tell Sam to keep hidden? To understand the weight of that statement, you have to go back to the early days of Outlander. It was 2013. Sam was still a relatively unknown Scottish actor stepping into the biggest role of his life. He had the look, the accent, the charm, but there was pressure unlike anything he'd ever known. Playing Jamie Fraser wasn't just a job, it was stepping into the heart of a literary legend beloved by millions. Every gesture, every emotion, every moment mattered. In those first few weeks of filming, the long hours, the emotional intensity, and the physical demands began to take their toll. Sam was giving everything he had, maybe too much. One afternoon, after an especially brutal scene involving Jamie's emotional breakdown, the director called him aside. What he told Sam that day would stay with him for the next decade. According to Sam, the director looked him in the eye and said quietly, "You can't let them see all of it." Confused, Sam asked what he meant. The director continued, "They need to see Jamie, not Sam. Whatever you feel, however much it hurts, hide that part. Keep it for yourself." Those words would come to define how Sam approached his craft for years. He didn't talk about it publicly, not once, but those who worked with him noticed something changed that day. After that, he became almost untouchable in his focus, one crew member later said. He could walk into a scene and make you believe he was breaking, but then, the second the camera stopped, it was like he disappeared inside himself. You could see he was holding something back. It wasn't about ego or control. It was about protection, protecting the story, the illusion, and perhaps even himself. The director's advice wasn't a criticism, it was a lesson in mastery. If the audience sees your real pain, the director had said, they stop believing in the character's pain. They start worrying about you instead. And Sam understood. He took that message to heart. Over time, fans began to notice the subtlety in his performances, the moments where Jamie's emotions felt almost too real, but never indulgent. That restraint, that quiet intensity, became his signature. But behind that control was something the world couldn't see: exhaustion, heartbreak, and sometimes, physical pain. During the interview, Sam admitted there were moments on set where he was struggling more than anyone realized. "There were days I could barely stand from the weight of it," he confessed. "Emotionally, mentally, even physically. But I never wanted people to see that. The director told me once that great acting isn't about showing everything, it's about knowing what to keep hidden." Hearing him say those words now, years later, felt like watching a curtain lift on one of television's most private stars. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't gossip. It was truth, raw and human. Sam's revelation made fans realize how much of himself he'd poured into Outlander, not just as an actor, but as a man. Behind every tear, every whispered confession between Jamie and Claire, every moment of courage and heartbreak, there was a performer who carried invisible weight, and chose not to let the world see it. By the end of the interview, the host asked if he regretted hiding so much of himself all these years. Sam paused, looked down for a moment, and then smiled softly. "No," he said, It wasn't about hiding. It was about protecting something sacred. Some parts of us belong only to the story. The room went silent, and just like that, the mystery that had once been hidden became something else entirely. A window into Sam Heughan's soul, and a reminder that sometimes, the most powerful truths are the ones we never meant to reveal. The revelation didn't fade after the interview ended. It spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed across entertainment sites. Sam Heughan breaks silence on Outlander's hidden truth. What was the secret director's note that changed everything? Fans dissected every line, every pause, every look in that interview. But what most didn't realize was that the story behind Sam's confession was far more complex, and far more emotional, than anyone could have imagined. In the days following his revelation, Sam decided to elaborate in a follow-up podcast appearance. He spoke softly, his tone reflective, almost nostalgic. That moment with the director happened during one of the hardest periods of my life, he began. It wasn't just about acting, it was about survival. He explained how, in the early seasons of Outlander, the intensity of Jamie Fraser's emotional journey started bleeding into his own reality. The exhaustion, the pressure, the constant exposure, it all blurred the line between the man and the character. There were times, he said, when I didn't know if I was feeling Jamie's pain or my own. That was when his director stepped in, not as a filmmaker, but as a mentor. The secret instruction to hide it wasn't about deception, it was a lifeline. He wasn't telling me to fake anything, Sam clarified. He was teaching me how to protect myself, how to keep a part of Sam safe while giving everything to Jamie. He described one particular day on set that tested that boundary. It was during the filming of one of Outlander's most harrowing episodes, a scene filled with vulnerability, violence, and emotional collapse. Sam had pushed himself to the limit, refusing to use a stunt double or take extra breaks. After the final take, he collapsed in the corner of the set, silent and trembling. The director walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "This is what I meant. You can't give them all of you. Save some for yourself." That advice would shape Sam's approach to every role that followed. He began learning the art of controlled truth, channeling real emotion, but never letting it consume him completely. "There's a fine line," he said. "You have to go deep enough to touch something real, but not so deep that you lose your way back." It's a lesson only the most seasoned actors understand, and one that comes with scars invisible to the camera. For fans, hearing this side of Sam, the disciplined craftsman behind the charisma, was deeply moving. Many had watched him for years, admiring his composure, his unwavering professionalism, and his ability to portray agony and tenderness with equal power. But few realized how much of that performance came from pain carefully hidden behind the eyes. The podcast host asked if he ever felt tempted to ignore that director's advice, to let go completely. Sam smiled thoughtfully. There were moments, he admitted. Especially when the emotions were too big to contain. There's a part of me that wanted to just break on screen, to show it all. But then I'd hear his voice again, "Don't show them the wound. Let them feel it." That became my mantra. What struck listeners most was the vulnerability in his words. Sam wasn't speaking as a celebrity giving soundbites. He was a man reflecting on how art had both healed and hurt him. "The truth is," he said, "I've carried that lesson into life, not just acting. There are parts of ourselves that the world doesn't need to see to believe in. Sometimes strength is quiet, sometimes honesty is silence." His words resonated deeply with fans who saw themselves in that struggle. The need to stay strong, to keep something private, even while giving everything to others. Overnight, social media filled with messages of gratitude and empathy. "He's not just talking about acting," one fan wrote. "He's talking about being human." Industry peers also weighed in, praising Sam's candor. Directors and co-stars who had worked with him spoke about his emotional discipline, his quiet leadership on set, and the rare humility that comes with greatness. One former Outlander crew member shared, "Sam's the kind of actor who feels everything, but he never lets the world see him crumble. That's not coldness, that's strength." By revealing this long-kept secret, Sam didn't just shock the world. He redefined what it means to be vulnerable in Hollywood. His confession wasn't scandalous, it was soulful. It reminded everyone that behind every perfect performance lies a private struggle, a hidden truth, and a heart that beats quietly beneath the spotlight. As the podcast came to a close, the host asked one final question. If you could go back, would you still hide it? Sam smiled. That same half-smile fans know so well, and said softly, yes. Because sometimes, what you don't show says more than anything you could ever say. And with that, the mystery of the hidden secret came full circle. Not a secret of deceit, but of depth. It was never about concealing the truth, but protecting it. The secret that once belonged to the director had become Sam's philosophy, a code of quiet resilience, artistry, and grace. Because the greatest performances, like the greatest souls, are built not on what we reveal, but on what we choose to keep sacred.